This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
It is a big week in the SEC with three massive showdowns on tap for this week. Ole Miss and Oklahoma, Mizzou, Vandy, and of course, Texas A&M going on the road, take on LSU for this week. We're going to break down all three of those games with Ken Padgett today, picking his brain on those matchups, what he sees in them, and identify Kent's favorite bets across the board for week 9 in college football. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research. Joined here as mentioned by Kent Padgett. Check him out on X at KentSports24. He is on TikTok as well, Kent Sports. Check him out on the FanDuel socials across the board. Kent, we are already on to week number 9. How you doing today?
Good, man. How about yourself?
I am trying to ride the roller coaster. I know people like every college football or NFL show this time of year begins like, oh, I can't believe season's almost done. I really don't want to get into that. I kind of want to enjoy the moment, but I do feel myself like slipping into like, oh, dang, this is kind of slipping away faster than I really wanted to.
Yeah, I don't want it to slip away either, but it is fun this time of year. Like we'll talk about some of the games here shortly. Must win feel to these games, which doesn't hurt for the excitement.
Must-win games. We know what the stakes are by this point in the year now, which helps too, because we kind of know who the contenders are, who the teams are, out of it and stuff like that. So it's going to make things a lot of fun. And a lot of those teams that are on the fringe of the playoff picture are in play for this week with really big matchups. So as mentioned, we are going to talk to Kent, get his read on those games, and try to identify some good bets this week, and also break down the updated Heisman odds at FanDuel Sportsbook. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. Check out Covering the Spread on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us a 5-star rating there. But also, all these shows on the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page. There, you can find my breakdown of every NFL Week 8 game, going game by game, breaking down my model's spread and total predictions, laying out bets that I like at FanDuel Sportsbook as well. We are here Monday through Friday. Tomorrow, talking NFL Week 8 with Brandon Gadula. Friday, NFL player props with Liv Moods. All right here, FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page and the Covering the Spread podcast feed. Go subscribe there. 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thumbs up on YouTube and turn on those notifications on YouTube as well. FanDuel's getting you ready for kickoff with an offer you won't want to miss. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5, and if it wins, you'll unlock $300 to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style, FanDuel has you covered. NFL season is finally here. Only question is, are you ready to play? Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-drawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/Chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Now, Kent, let's begin things with that Heisman discussion, because it seems like we're getting a better idea of who the actual contenders for this year are. There's a group of 3 at the top. And it's Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson, and JimSannes, who are all 4-1 or shorter as things stand. And it can be one of those guys or further down the board. But I'm kind of wondering, now that we have some separation here, anybody stand out to you as being a good value to win the Heisman?
Yeah, I'm kind of buying the Ty Simpson hype. I saw Alabama fans are calling it Theismann season, TY space, Theismann season.
I like it.
And anytime there's a name like that, like Johnny Football, or way back in the day, there was always Joe Theismann. And I was like, I think that can only help your Heisman candidacy here. So of the 3, I also feel like JimSannes, like mentally, I can't grasp, like Stroud didn't win it, Justin Fields didn't win it. Now Sayan as a freshman is I think Jeremiah Smith might steal some votes from him. Also, Mendoza is going to be there, but if it's down to Mendoza and Ty at the end, and voters are like, okay, Indiana's schedule versus Alabama's schedule with all these big ranked opponents, it's probably going to lean Ty Simpson. Now, I also, when I say schedule, Mendoza has a pretty easy schedule left. I don't think they have a ranked opponent. When I last checked, they did not. Remaining on the schedule. Georgia, I mentioned this last week. I think they're going to win out. And they've got Texas and Georgia Tech as the two tough games. I'm expecting them to win out. And Gunnar Stockton runs the ball. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a contention at the end of the season, maybe even gets invited to New York. But a lot of these guys are pocket passers. They're probably not going to have any of these Heisman moments that people latch onto. I wouldn't be surprised if Gunnar has like a big play and ends up in New York. And right now he's, I believe, 11-1. So I'm not out on Gunnar completely. I think he could still find his way in there at the end. And kind of a weird group because we didn't expect any of these guys to be near the top at the beginning, but here we are.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to watch this race develop. As you mentioned, Stockton right now is 11-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook. You've been on Alabama all year long, and that's paid off well for you outside of week one. So it's been a really good ride for them. They've come through for you in a pretty big way. Simpson plus 330. Their opponent this week is not too terrible. So do you feel like now, if you want to buy into Simpson, now would be the time to do so, given that there could be some chaos in the SEC this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. And like with these, if you wait, it might drop to 4,
right?
Maybe, but like we're kind of far enough along. We have an idea of who's getting invited to New York. And if you wait too long, you could miss out on the Heisman moment. And then he could be like Travis Hunter last year was like all of a sudden like minus 200. I was like, whoa, how'd that happen?
In a big game for Marcel Reed too, he is plus 750 as things stand. We'll talk about that game against LSU later on. Let's begin things, though, by talking about Ole Miss at Oklahoma, the first game I want to break down for today. As things stand at FanDuel Sportsbook, Oklahoma 4.5-point favorite. That is down from 5.5 yesterday. Total in this game is setting at 54.5. Obviously, John Mateer looked a bit better this past week than he did against Texas, but still didn't seem like early season John Mateer just yet. So any chance Ole Miss can keep this one close enough to cover, Kent, or does Oklahoma get back on track?
Yeah, I kind of lean Oklahoma here. We mentioned this at the top, like must-win game. Yeah. Like Ole Miss can't lose 2 straight. Oklahoma, this would be 2 out of 3. Can't really have that this time of year, especially when you're trying to make a playoff that's really competitive. So this is a like noon Eastern start time. That's 11 a.m. local time. I think that diminishes some of the home field advantage for Oklahoma. If I was a Sooners fan, I'd be upset because big game, you want that thing at night. But this is shaping up for it to be a great one. Great offense against great defense. Ole Miss is actually 8th in the country in yards per game, but Oklahoma's defense is 1st in the country in yards per game allowed. So typically, I always lean to great defenses when it's great versus great. And Oklahoma's recent history against dual threat quarterbacks, we just saw them against Lenore Sellers, who had -9 rushing yards last week. And the one gap in Oklahoma's offense, when, other than Mateer's injury, like, the gap has typically been running the ball. I think against Texas, they had 48 rushing yards on 30 carries. But when Oklahoma's rolling, they've got the running game going. Ole Miss's defense can be a little vulnerable, and the Rebels rank 99th in rushing yards allowed. So I think there's a space here where Mateer has another week, looks a little bit better, and the Sooners' rushing attack kind of takes over a little bit. So I'm afraid Ole Miss won't be able to stop them. And similar to Georgia, it'll be Chambliss in the offense trying to track them down late in the game. Not sure how close they can keep it. But now, if we talk about final score and over-unders, I couldn't believe this is true. I had to go back and check one by one. All 7 of Oklahoma's games have gone under. And Ole Miss 3 of the last 4. Obviously, last week against Georgia was a high-scoring game. But if these teams would go under, I think it only favors the team that's great on defense, and that's Oklahoma. So I'm going to take a final score that puts it right below the under. I like Oklahoma to win by a touchdown. I'm going 30-23 Sooners, so Sooners covering in the under. Also, I don't know how much people at Ole Miss are worried about this. I'm hearing a lot of smoke about Lane to Florida.
Yeah.
And we talk about vibes. I don't know if Florida's even that much better of a job. But that's a whole separate discussion. But I do like Oklahoma here.
Yeah, it's been a drumbeat that's been seeming to get a bit louder as the weeks have gone along here. Could be a concern there, especially if they were to drop additional games. That could open up the door as well. But Oklahoma,
right.
again, -4.5. That's at -115, slightly in towards the under as well for Kent. Under 54.5 is at -110. Now, we talk a lot about how when a team goes 0-7 towards the over, where they're going under a lot, you'll see the books react. Do you feel like the books have reacted enough? Because it sounds like you're pretty in line with this total. Have the books reacted enough to downward adjusting totals in Oklahoma games, reacting to Brent Venables and that defense, where you think that the value there is mostly dried up? Or do you still think that the under is a solid enough look and they still need to bring it down a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's a solid enough look right now. I mean, like when I say 30 to 23, I think that's going to be about where it is, and that's right at 53 total. So obviously they're going to keep coming down as long as Oklahoma keeps keeping them low scoring. But this was the method I gave you last week for Ole Miss Georgia. I said, Ole Miss keeps hitting these unders, and then it goes over. So maybe they've overcorrected, but with 7 straight, I'm not going to try to guess the overcorrection moment.
Alrighty, so Kent is on Oklahoma, -4.5, -115, with a slight lean towards the under in this game as well. Let's talk now about the game where College Game Day is going to be this weekend. They'll be in Nashville to watch Mizzou taking on Vanderbilt. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, Vandy a favorite by 2.5. Total in this game sitting at 52.5. And both these teams, at least at this point, have playoff aspirations. Maybe not like the firmest hopes, but like they're in the picture for sure. But a loss would be a huge blow to them there. So, Kent, I'm just going to ask you straight up, who you got in Mizzou taking on Vandy?
Yeah, like another must win in the SEC. And who says the regular season's diminished? Like, neither of these teams can really afford a second loss at this point in the year. So I'm fired up for this one as well. But it's two teams like nearly identical. They have the same colors, like it's black and gold. Dual threat quarterbacks. Only loss for each team was to Alabama earlier this month. When I dive into the numbers, slight edge to Missouri. They profile a little bit higher, even though they're the lower ranked team. I'm not sure if the Pavia hype has gotten to some of the voters or what, but the Tigers' defense is actually 5th in the country in yards per game allowed, and their offense is 10th in yards per game, while Vandy's is more in the 20s on both of those. So slight edge to Missouri. And then I know each college football game is its own like individual entity, and you can't get caught up too much in how they do against this team. But Missouri did kind of give Alabama a fit, and Alabama kind of had their way with Vanderbilt. So when I think about a game that two teams that look really similar, going to be close at the end, I have more trust in a team that I'm high on Alabama, gave Alabama a fit. So a little bit more trust in my heart for Missouri there. I know Vanderbilt's at home, but I think we're just going to see a lot of offense here, a lot of crazy plays. I have a slight lean to Missouri, and if you're giving me the points, 2.5, I'm going to take them, and I think they might actually win outright. So I'm going to actually predict Missouri to win 31-30, and I'm glad that I'm getting some points there because this could be a crazy game that goes down to a field goal.
As you mentioned, some consideration towards the money line there for Mizzou. They are plus 115 in the money line. If you want the 2.5 instead, that is at -105. Total in this game, 52.5. Sounds like you like the offenses in this game. You mentioned the defenses have played pretty well, but expecting some points. 52.5 to you. What's your read on the total for this one?
Yeah, probably about right. I mean, if we're going to, it probably, like, I could see it going over just because I think both quarterbacks are super dynamic and can just bust off these third down runs when the pressure's on. But I think the over-under is right in line. I'm not confident necessarily one way or the other against that. Like, I don't really have any strong data to back it up the way I did with Ole Miss and Oklahoma. But, I think it's probably right where it is.
All right, so Kent's giving a look to the Mizzou money line again, plus 115 as they take on Vandy in Nashville. Should be a really fun atmosphere there for this entire weekend. Final game to me is the most intriguing one we're going to discuss for today. That is Texas A&M going on the road to take on LSU. And even though this game is in Baton Rouge, Texas A&M still a 2.5 point favorite. Total in this game is at 47.5. And obviously, Texas A&M is a favorite for a reason, because we've seen a lot of inconsistencies from LSU so far this year. LSU coming off their second loss, but their losses have come to really good teams. So with this game in Baton Rouge, can LSU give Texas A&M their first loss of the season?
Yeah, I won't be surprised if they do. Like, I'm not sold on Texas A&M yet, especially after last week against Arkansas. I think they won by it was 3. It should not have been that close. Also, they're just 3-4 this year against the spread, and their only ranked win was by 1 point to Notre Dame in like the second week of the season. So I know they're 7-0, and A&M fans are probably giving me a fit about this, but like I don't see them as a juggernaut. And maybe we don't really have a ton of super teams left, but that would just I am not sold, and there's nothing backing up that they should be given this credit as a juggernaut. Now, LSU, they've been sketchy as well, and even though Nussmeier in the offense, it's not the second coming of Joe Burrow, they secretly still have a really good defense. The Tigers' defense ranks 9th in points per game allowed, and A&M's offense is only 27th in the country in scoring. So imagine that now in a night game in Death Valley. And I think LSU is going to have to keep this one kind of an ugly defensive battle, and I think they can win that if so. And I just feel like LSU is due to win one of these big ones. They've slipped up this year. And while I feel kind of in the same breath that A&M is due to drop one of these, and they've kind of been dodging the landmines, as we say, but I just feel like LSU has their back up against the wall, especially Brian Kelly. Vibes might not be great, but if the fans are going to be fired up, the team's going to be fired up, what fires you up more than your home stadium, a night game, an undefeated rivalry team coming in? So I could see LSU just being absolutely fired up, and that defense holding their own, and this being kind of an ugly low-scoring game, around 23-20 for LSU. So I'm going to take the under here, and I'm also going to take LSU plus 2.5, just thinking they keep it close.
So you were talking about the LSU offense, and the defense is playing well. The offense, I think we all had pretty high expectations for coming into this year. Are you expecting them to bounce back, or do you think the concerns we've seen from them are concerning enough where it's more so the defense driving your interest in LSU here?
Yeah, it's going to have to be the defense.
Okay.
Like the LSU hype with the offense, I think we overhyped them coming into the year because it's LSU. And then they beat Clemson week 1 or week 0, which we're all like, here comes LSU. They just beat this powerhouse Clemson team, and that win has lost its shine a little bit. And Nussmeier, like, I know he had a knee injury going into the season. I don't know how, he was going to be like the number 1 pick, and I assume he's healthy if he keeps playing, but we're now in like 7 games of this where it's just, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. And it's like not really that exciting. And I think one of their offensive tackles is out this week. So it's going to have to be the defense carrying them and winning a low-scoring, ugly game. The defense is capable of that, especially at home. But I don't really have a ton of confidence in LSU's offense. But with that said, I don't have a ton of confidence in A&M either. So
if the defense can do enough, the environment can rattle Texas A&M a little bit here. That could be enough for them to get the cover at least. So Ken taking the plus 2.5, that is at minus 102, and the under 47.5 minus 105 for Texas A&M taking on LSU. Okay, Kent, let's open up the board for you right now. When you look elsewhere across week 9 in college football, which bets do you like at FanDuel Sportsbook?
Yeah, so this one is kind of a fun one to talk about. Texas over Mississippi State. Mississippi State's 0-3 in the SEC. They've lost some close games, but they're only, is that 6.5 now, I think? Is that what it says? Yeah. Yeah, I'm taking Texas minus 6.5. They responded after beating Oklahoma. It's like time for Texas to kind of start taking that upward trajectory, and they needed overtime to beat Kentucky.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of wake back up. Let's go back to the level we were against Oklahoma. Play good again. I just don't know. They're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team this year, but if we just saw bad Texas, I think we get good Texas this week. And also, they've got to string together a few big wins in a row where they're just taking it to these other teams. I think they're a good team, and I think they'll be kind of near the playoff picture at the end. It's time for them to kick it into gear, and if they're ever going to do it, I think it's now. Mississippi State, they're close ones that they've been losing, but I don't think this one's within a touchdown.
Okay, so that's 6.5 right now. It's a heavy 6.5 at minus 124. So if you like Texas, could look at some alt lines there as well. That's where that one's sitting. Any other games interest you this weekend?
Yeah, let's go to the Big 12. Iowa State and BYU. I was not as high as on BYU. I didn't think they'd beat Utah last week. They did. They proved me wrong. This week, they're the underdog on the road to Iowa State. And they're coming off that emotional win. and Iowa State is coming off 2 straight losses. And I think coming into the year, like they were all kind of thought to be about the same. And this is a play of like water always levels. I just feel like BYU coming off an emotional win and Iowa State, who's a good team, coming off 2 straight losses, like Iowa State's going to be playing with so much fire under their butts and so passionate. They need this one. And they're favored at home. And I'm like, okay, the books know Iowa State's coming out ready. So I like that. I'm probably going to take Iowa State with this or minus the points there.
All right, that -2.5 for Iowa State is -118. That's again in addition to Texas -6.5, -124. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. As mentioned, back once again tomorrow. We're going to break down NFL week number 8 with Brandon Gadula. That show will be up early Thursday morning. NFL DFS show on the YouTube page as well. Be live at noon Eastern there. So subscribe to the FanDuel Football Betting YouTube page and the Covering the Spread podcast feed. But Kent, appreciate the time as always. Good luck to you. Enjoy the football. We'll talk to you once again soon.
Same to you, man. I'll see you.
You can find Kent on X at KentSports24. Check him out on TikTok at KentSports and check him out on the FanDuel socials as well. I am on X and Blue Sky at JimSannes, on Threads at Jim.Sannes, and check out FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work in the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always, and thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your college football bets week 9. Back again tomorrow, talking about NFL week 8. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.